guys, welcome to Behind Church Doors. I am Roshel Richard.
And I am Jenna Lewis. And we both grew up in fundamentalist churches and are here to share our deconstruction with you. So welcome back to Behind Church Doors.
Yeah, welcome back, guys.
We're excited that you're here. Today, we're going to talk about, I think, one subsection of a question I think a lot of Christians come with people deconstructing is like, what does it hurt? You know, I think you told me a saying that someone told you from our old church. What was that saying that you said?
Yeah, it was, and this is like something that I sort of based my whole belief system on, probably from my like teen years. One of the ladies at the church that we went to together had a saying that she would say, I'd rather risk in faith than die in disbelief. And so I just like blindly followed that. Yeah.
Which it sounds like, okay, what's the harm? If I'm wrong, nothing happens, right? But I think it causes a lot of pain and suffering in people's lives. And I think it also causes a lot, there's layers of a lot of problems that it causes. But I think today we're just going to talk about one on the effects that it has on people that are growing up in churches or join fundamentalist groups like this that are a part of the LGBTQ community, and how it affects them mentally and emotionally and in their long-term relationships. So I'm going to pass it on to you.
Yeah,
we said we'd do a coming out episode.
Here it is. This is how Rochelle came out.
This is how.
Just kidding. So I'll say like from a young age, probably the earliest that I can remember is maybe like first grade, being the first time that I had any sort of like feelings or any thoughts about like another woman or another girl, you know.
And first grade is like what, 6?
Yeah,
7?
That's a little, that's
really
young.
Early.
Yeah. And so just kind of, I never really like came out to my parents. Like at a young age, never came out to them because I grew up in the church. So I grew up knowing that it was wrong or being told that it was wrong. Yeah. And to that point, I almost feel like I just don't care. Like as a parent, if my child wants to live a certain lifestyle or is having certain feelings, if it's not hurting her or anyone else, like really, I'm going to just love her through it. You know what I mean? I'm just going to love her and let her be exactly who she is. And I do wish that I had that sort of like representation from my parents, like at a young age. But I guess maybe that's also on me because I never really like took the step to like come out. But I also didn't feel like it was a safe environment to do so.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of people's feelings growing up in the church. That I know we talked about it on our purity episode, that LGBTQ is not even accounted for in true love waits, and is because it was not an option. It's like not even an option on the table. And I think I told you this story back when we were first talking about starting this channel, and my husband has always been like very big ally in that community, and done marches and all that sort of stuff. I was raised fundamentalist, so obviously I did not. I did not participate. But I also did have a lot of friends that were like gay or like lesbian or whatever, and I didn't really care. But my husband asked me one day and was like, so if our daughter decides to love a woman, are you saying that she's going to hell, or are you saying like she can't go to heaven? Or are you saying it's wrong? And this was years ago, and I was like, I was kind of frozen. I was like, I don't know. Like, I would, of course, like, yeah, she could, I'm not going to kick her out of the house or anything like that, but would I think it's wrong? And I was like, I don't know. And this was kind of one of the things that started to prompt me in like deconstruction. And he kind of asked, you know, how would loving, you know, person A versus person B, just genitalia being different, the only difference, like how would that be wrong or deserve condemnation, essentially? I couldn't answer him, and I was just like, I don't know, like, and so I think that's kind of what prompted me on a lot of this. But I can only imagine from your point of view, being a same-sex attracted and then being so repressed and told that's like not an option, it's wrong, you're going to hell, and you know, things like that.
Yeah, it was pretty tough. I didn't even like you knew me from like childhood, and you didn't even know until maybe a few years ago. Yeah, I didn't really come out to a lot of people. Honestly, I guess the only like friends that I came out to were the ones that I was interested in.
Awesome.
And it wasn't even like for shame of myself, because I am just an open person. That's just the type of person that I am. Like I will talk to you about whatever you want to know about my life. Like I don't hide it.
I feel like if I would have asked you, you would have told me the truth, but I never even thought to ask.
Yeah, if you had asked, I would have told you.
Yeah.
But I just didn't want to like embarrass my parents, because we knew other people in the church whose like kids were gay or lesbian or had same-sex attractions, and there were so many like negative things that were said
about them,
about those like their parents as well as the kids, and I just didn't want people to like talk about my parents in that way. And I also think like I was nervous that my parents wouldn't like protect me. You know what I mean? Like I didn't feel like they would be like,
back you up.
Yeah, I don't feel like that. I didn't feel like they'd be like, at the end of the day, like you're our kid and we love you. I just don't think they would have accepted it. And I think that was out of fear, mainly for like my soul. I don't think they would try like purposely try to like hurt me and say like you're going to hell, but I think they would just hurt for me in a sense of like, because I'm living this lifestyle, or that I want to live this lifestyle that they don't agree with, that I'm like damned to hell. And I think it would just hurt them more than anything to think about me burning in hell because I like women.
See, you almost felt like you had to protect your parents.
Yeah, I definitely did. I feel like even to this day, like I still feel the need to protect my parents. Yeah, I don't think I would ever come out to anyone in the church, even at this point in my life, just because I wouldn't want my parents to feel the effects of that. I wouldn't care what they say about me. It wouldn't affect me at all, but I wouldn't want my parents to feel that sort of hurt.
Would it compromise their position in the church?
I don't know. Like, I imagine that it probably would. Like, I think because my dad's a pastor, so I think it would be more so like people would look at him like, what did you do wrong in raising your daughter if she's attracted to like same sex? Because I have a cousin who is openly poly, like very openly poly, and they say like not great things about her. Like a lot of people in our family say not great things about her because of the lifestyle that she's chosen to live. Yeah. And I've known for a while that she's poly. She's been pretty open with us about it. Like she's a lot like me, like she doesn't care. But she didn't tell the family. But I guess they found out like on Facebook or something maybe. And like there's just like not been great things said about her, and I hurt for her because I know she doesn't care one bit, but I just wouldn't want my parents to have to like deal with that, you know what I mean?
The backlash.
And that's sad that in this day and age, like even as a grown up, like I'm still trying to protect them. I'm trying to protect people that I feel like didn't protect me as a younger person growing up,
which is not your responsibility.
Yeah, it's definitely not, but
you feel like it is. I get that.
Yeah.
So what does coming out to you mean then? So if you're not, I guess, public, when I say public, I guess I mean more like,
yeah, like everybody knows, or
right.
Like, yeah. So, to me, I think it means to me like the moment in my life when I accepted that this is just who I am, versus like trying to suppress it, or trying to like pretend like it's not,
not there,
not a part of my life. Yeah, like I don't have the feelings, because for a lot of years, probably from that like young age, up until probably like I was 17, honestly, 17, 18, I really just tried to like suppress it, like, it's like maybe it'll go away, or like even pray it away, like tried that.
Right.
Because I just felt like it was wrong, but like I didn't know why I felt like it was wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like you personally didn't think it was wrong. It was kind of more things that were put on you.
Yeah.
That made you think doubt your own sanity almost.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So once I finally it wasn't until I was in college that I finally like was like, all right, let me just see like, what this is like.
College.
Yeah. And I had some relationships in college with like a few different people. And I think that's when I realized like I don't love someone because of their gender. Like I love someone because of the person that they are. And I think that's the point when I was just like, all right, if I'm gonna end up with someone, if it's a woman, it's a woman. If it's a man, it's a man. If it's someone who's trans, it's someone who's trans. Like, I just didn't care. And so there was maybe 2 times that my mom and I had like conversations about like, I guess my sexualities, you could say. Like, I never officially said like, you know, I'm pan, I'm bi, I'm, you know, lesbian. Like, I've never said that to her. So I don't even know to this day, like, where, like, what she knows, or like, you know what I mean, where she knows that I'm at. I don't know what her stance is on it.
But you mentioned on one of the episodes, like, she knew you were dating girls, and she knew. Yeah,
because she, at one point, she had named off like some of the girls. She's like, I know you've dated blah, blah. And I was like, oh snap. Yeah. I was not discreet. Thought I was, but I think it's just a mother knows their child, you know.
Yeah.
And with that, there's a lot of hurt that came after that, of like, so you knew this whole time, and I'm sure you saw me struggling, and you didn't want to say anything.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
That's hard. That's hard to let go. I could see that. I mean, this is like a silly example, but for example, your daughter just had a birthday, right? Mm-hmm. We were there. Our kids don't drink sodas, right? So my oldest comes up to me there with a can of Sprite, and she's like, "Hey, did you want this?" I was like, "Bitch, you know you brought this over here to ask me." And I was like, "No, I don't want that." She's like, "Oh, well, what am I gonna do with it?" I'm like, "Girl,
it's in my hand.
I was
it's
like,
open. What do I do?"
Yeah. I was like, "Honey, are you asking if you can have that?" And she's like, "Well, I guess." And I'm like, just have it. It's fine. But it's like what you're saying, like a mom knows her kid. Like, it's like, I knew she was not coming to give me a can of Sprite. Like, I knew it. I knew she was trying to not ask for it, but asking for it. So, but I think you're right. And that's a hard thing. Yeah. You know, I feel the same way about a lot of like childhood stuff. Like with my parents, I'm like, okay, you know, it's like, you can probably tell from past episodes, you know, me and my mom have some issues. Me and my dad's a saint. But one of the realizations I had to come to, it's like, there's no way my dad didn't know what was going on. There's no way he was oblivious to like how we were being treated or not treated, or taken care of or not taken care of. And me having to cope with the fact that he's responsible as well. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he never did anything, said anything, intervened, etc. Like, he has an amount of responsibility as well. And that's really hard, because, you know, my dad is like, you know, my hero. Love my dad. But that's hard to cope with when you're just like, when you have a parent that's essentially wronged you. Mm-hmm. I think that's especially one that you love so much, like how much you love your mom. Like, that's got to be really hard to cope with.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of money in therapy, working through it.
Therapy generation.
Yeah, I definitely think I'm on the other side of feeling that hurt.
That's good.
I think that, like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like being raised in like a cult environment and coming out of it and being on the complete other side of it, like not associating with it at all. I see that like they knew, but I think maybe they just didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. But then I like you said, I struggle with like, you didn't know what to do, but all you had to do is love me. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Love me exactly for who I was, and not for who you like maybe were trying to turn me into. Mm-hmm. And that's the part that I have a hard time with.
So at this point, does your dad know any of what's happened, or you think your mom's told him?
Yeah, my mom and my dad are pretty like transparent with each other, so I would imagine that she's like had conversations with him. Yeah.
So do you think, hypothetically, like, we know you're married and we've talked about that before, but like, if you were to come home with a female and saying that you were gonna get married or dating or whatever, would they accept that?
No. If we had like a wedding, they wouldn't come. No, they just wouldn't. And I have a niece who is very, like, I love her to death, because she was brave enough to do what like I couldn't do. You know, she stood in front of my family and's like, you know, this is who I am, I'm gay. Like, she cut her hair off. Like, she's and
how have they treated her?
So in the beginning, like not great. And so when she was younger, she had some things happen, and they kind of blamed it on like, so a lot of people in the church, just throw this in, believe that homosexuality stems from someone being molested.
Mm-hmm, I've heard that too.
I've heard people in the church say specifically, like, if you think you're gay, you have been molested. Like, that's the only reason why you could possibly.
I've heard that too.
But as someone who can remember back to being 7 years old, having feelings for girls, like, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true. You know, I can only speak from my own experience, but, so my niece pretty much stood in front of the family, and like, she's still openly gay. And she did not get a really good reception from the family in the beginning, like, especially from her mom. She's pretty like heartbroken by it, like very heartbroken by it. And so me and my husband like really tried to take her like under our wing and just make sure that she knew that when you're with us, like,
you be
exactly who you are. We're not going to change. We don't want to change anything about you. Like, this is a safe space, you know? And I think I created that environment for her because no one created that environment for me.
That's good though. And you're creating that environment for your daughter. And okay, it doesn't matter who she grows up to love, but like, I think I don't know what to call it now, but I used to kind of say like our home should be like a sanctuary. Now I don't really like using that term. But I'm like, this has to be the place where it's okay to fall apart. Like, this has to be the place that like you get to be you. Like, it's safe. Like, anything you say or not, like, I can hear what you're saying. And I think that's something that I definitely did not have growing up. I didn't have that safe space, if you will. And I know a lot of older generations kind of like make fun of our age group being like, oh, those snowflakes in their safe spaces. But it's something I think very important. And you know, I can't make school safe necessarily. I mean, we've seen that on the news. Like, I can't make a lot of things safe, but I can control what happens in my house. And so, but I love that you're making that space for other people.
Yeah, definitely. And so I don't know, like, I don't know if I'll ever like fully come out like to my family. I don't know at this point, like, what the point of it would be, you know, other than me just like living my truth. But like I said, I worked through a lot of issues in therapy. I think in the beginning I made a lot of excuses for my family and how they handled the situation, of like, well, there was a lot of kids, and like I'm sure my parents struggle a lot because I only have the one kid, and I know how hard that is, you know, and they had more kids, and then they were like in this church that they like didn't really know there was a cult. But like the biggest thing that I learned in therapy was like, you can't make excuses for anyone else's behavior off of assumptions. So I can't say like, oh, well, they had kids, so that's why they you know, they struggled. Maybe they struggled in their marriage, and that's why like they couldn't, you know, create this space for me or love me the way that I was. But it's like, at the end of the day, as your parents, their number one job is to love you for you.
I agree.
And I wasn't like, I was a good kid, you know, like, I didn't get in a lot of trouble. I didn't do a lot of things wrong. The one thing I'm sure to my parents that I did wrong was be gay or like girls, you know?
Right.
And so I think I overcompensated in other areas because I knew that they like wouldn't be happy about that part. And so I tried to be really, really good at like with everything else, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's crazy. And so what about your siblings? Do your siblings? No, they don't know at all.
No, I don't think they have any. Well, I don't know. Maybe they have an idea nowadays because I'm pretty like vocal on social media. Like, I'm definitely an ally.
Yeah. I
speak up a lot. Even now, like when I'm with my family, if they make any comments about like the community, I speak up right away. I mean, I have a t-shirt that literally says closets are for clothes. So
I love it.
Like, I'm pretty open as far as that goes. So, and I haven't heard a lot of like negative things lately from my family, probably in the last couple years. And I think it's because I've been so vocal about like, it's just not going to be tolerated. Like, you're not gonna like I will never forget the fact that, you know, I heard a pastor compare gay people to maggots.
Yeah.
I will never ever forget that.
And it was not just a pastor, it was your grandfather.
It was my grandfather. Yeah.
That's heartbreaking.
Multiple times, and I'm sitting in church, like hearing him say this, knowing that like I'm the person that he's talking about, you know, and like the fact that he had no regard for the people in the, like, you don't know someone's lifestyle, so to make a comment like that, like, and so you think you're better than me because you like someone with the same sex or the, you know, opposite sex, and I like someone with the same sex and I'm maggots, but you're the one who's a pastor in a pulpit saying that gay people are like maggots or compared to maggots, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's that, I don't know. I think maybe I haven't worked through that because that still hurts thinking back about it, but
yeah, totally.
I don't know, but
that's just, yeah, it's hard. And there is no, at least in my experience, there is no give on that in the church. No. And what's crazy to me is there's so much give in other places, like adultery. Yes. Okay, adultery is mentioned way more times than homosexuality in the Bible. It made it to the fucking commandments. And homosexuality didn't, but not fucking your neighbor did. Yeah. And but that somehow pastors get away with. It's fine. They can still be a pastor. You know, people in the congregation. It's just like there's so much stuff. Or even just different like illegal activity. Like I know that sounds like not just biblically wrong, but we're talking legally like morally wrong. Yeah, and it's just like and the from stealing to for example, I knew someone in the church we went to before, they owned a business and were essentially committing fraud, right? Like they were, getting loans they knew they couldn't pay back. They were falsifying books and things. And this person's in leadership at the church. Yeah. And then continued to be like, oh, he lost his business and blah, blah, blah. Like that all these people trying to help him. And I'm like, he literally committed fraud. Like, how is he not going to, I don't know how he didn't go to jail, honestly. But I'm just saying, like, I don't, but that's fine. Yeah. And I'm like, so how can you bend in all of these other places?
But not on that. That's the one thing that like Christians are not like,
no.
It's just not accepted.
And as much as like premarital sex is like a very big no-no as well, like even now, so like back when I feel like we were in youth group and stuff, it was like, you're a crumpled piece of trash that'll never be, straight again type thing. But even now they're like doing re-virginizing and crazy stuff like that. So I'm just like, it's not like they've bent in so many places. And I know there are some like gay affirming churches. Like I know that there are some, so I don't want to discount that there are a few, but I would say the majority, there is no bend.
No, I agree with that. Yeah. And that's sad.
It is sad.
Yeah. So sad. I don't know if I'll ever like come out to my family. Yeah. Like I said, I just don't know if there's like a point to it. You know what I mean? At this point in my life, like I'm married, I have a family. My husband from the very beginning knew exactly like, he knew my lifestyle. He knew how I was. So it's not like it's a surprise to him, he's always known. But I do, like, I have nieces and stuff still. And I would really like for them to know that, like, if this is a lifestyle that you choose, like, yeah, your family might not be okay with it, but you're safe here. I try to create a really safe environment for
your nieces.
For my nieces. Yeah. Because it's important that they know, like,
they're somewhere safe.
Yeah.
And I think also as like your daughter gets older, you may become that safe space for her friends too. Yeah. Because I know that's one thing that my husband and I have talked about, that we were lucky enough to feel like we did have parents of like some of our friends that really felt like a safe space for us, that we really did have conversations with and things, not in our own homes, but in like in other people's homes. We kind of got that. And so me and him always talk about like, we want to be that for like our kids' friends, is like, we're the place, like if you need to come talk to me because you want to get on birth control and you don't know what to do, or come talk to me, like. Yeah. And so things like that, I'm just like, we want to be really open with, to not just our kids but to their friends. And I feel like that's how it's a saying that I always remember from Grey's Anatomy, like, you change the world by good people raising good kids. Yeah. And I think it's because you have more influence than just your own kid. You have all the people that they have influence of, especially when they're young and you have kids in your house and in that and stuff. So I think that's cool.
I think if my daughter did like someone of the same sex, I don't want her to feel like she has to like come out. You know what I mean?
Right.
I want her to feel so comfortable in her home that she just comes and she's like, hey, this is so and so, and like I love them. You know what I mean? That's my hope for.
It's not even a thing.
Yeah. And I always sometimes I think about like how different my life would be had I had more accepting parents, as far as that goes. And I don't know, like I don't even know what that would feel like. You know what I mean? To not have to hide like that part of my life for so long.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I didn't feel like unsafe in my home like physically, you know what I mean? But definitely emotionally unsafe as far as like my sexuality goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how different it would be. Maybe I would have been more like, maybe it would have made more safe spaces for the girlfriends that I did have. You know what I mean? Because maybe they were in very similar situations.
Yeah.
I know one girl I dated was like in church as well with me. And so she had like, when I'm telling you, we hid everything, like even as a grown up, like no posting on social media together. Like when we go out together, like we're not holding hands, like we are just like friends, you know? And so maybe that would have created a safe space for them, because I did have a lot of friends who would come to our house. Our house was definitely like the safe space as far as like my parents were both together, like my mom would cook dinner, like they were always home, you know what I mean? They kind of took care of us in that way. But maybe like if they were more open, like who knows how different like my life would be, you know?
Yeah.
I think that I still would have like probably met my husband and married my husband, but maybe I just would have like fonder memories or not as much like pain
And
thinking, pain and hurt thinking back to like how my childhood was.
So for your daughter, I know you're saying like you want to make it a safe space. 100% agree with you. But are there any additional conversations that you think that you'll have specifically around like how you feel? That's like, I love your daddy, but I also love, you know, I loved women in the past, or like, are you think you'll ever have that conversation with her?
Yeah, I think I will when the time is right. We already we are pretty good about not like establishing gender roles, you know, but my daughter is automatic. Like if she sees one, she's like, where's their mommy and daddy? And I definitely try to tell her, like, some people don't have a mommy and daddy. Some people have a mommy, some people have two mommies, some people have two daddies, some people will just have a grandma. You know what I mean? So I try to explain those things to her.
Different family dynamics.
Yeah. And I think that's maybe the first way that I'm like opening up the conversation. It'll probably be a long time before I really just like tell her like, this is, you know, what mom experienced, because there's people in my life that I've been with that are still in my life and they're in her life, and I want her to know how important those relationships were to me and how they affected the person that I am today, because I feel like in those relationships like I learned so much about myself, you know?
Right. Yeah, and I you were the one that told me that about you saying that with your daughter, like, oh, some people have, you know, mommies and mommies or daddies and daddies, and I think that to me that was like super important, because I know I told you, like, when we went on a family vacation recently and we were gonna go meet one of my really good friends and her girlfriend, and I said, just wasn't even thinking, you know, because it's not a big deal, right? I mean, it's not even a thing. And so I was like, oh, they know her as we'll say Auntie K. And I was like, oh, we're going to go see Auntie K and her girlfriend. And they said, well, wait. Auntie K is a girl? Yes. And she has a girlfriend? Yes. And they were like, how? But how? Like, they were confused. And then I felt really bad, because I was like, I mean, like, we've never pushed any of those things on them. But I guess I also haven't gone out of my way to be like what you were saying. Yeah. And being like, oh, some people have mommies and mommies or anything like that. And then I felt bad, because I was just like, I don't want them to feel like this, like there's something like wrong here. And so I did have a whole conversation with them. Not in like a weird way, because they're still young, but I was just like, you know, people can love whoever they want to, you know? And so, but I think that's important, even broader than just same-sex relationships. A lot of kids, like you said, are raised by their grandparents or their aunts or something like that. And I feel like a lot of the language we use with children can be really exclusionary. What's the word I'm looking for? Excluding. There we go. I'll get there. So it can be very excluding, because I know my girl's best friend is being raised by their grandparents. And I know it's really hard on her, but then it's also has to be hard on her constantly being asked about, like, oh, where's your mommy? Yeah. Oh, where's your daddy? And well, she don't live with them. So, you know, I think that's something that's a good tip. Yeah. And I don't know, like, sometimes I think, like, is this wrong? Just because I've like been told so much as a younger child that this is wrong, but I can tell you with like certainty that like there's no suppressing the feelings. Like I can try to pretend like they're not there, but like my attraction to women is very real. Since your mom did know, I know you said at one point she was like, I know you're gay or whatever. Yeah. So did they ever try and do anything to keep you from being gay?
Not that I can recall, because in that conversation, she's like, I've been praying this out of you for so long, kind of thing. And I'm sure, I can't remember exactly how that conversation went, because we were like in the car and it was pretty like high emotion. And the second time that we spoke about it was like in reference to, and I don't even know if my mom remembers that she said this, but we were in the car again with like someone else, and this person was like confiding in us just about some like marital problems that she was having. And she's like, yeah, I'm just having such a hard time. Like, I don't understand why he's like this, blah, 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 and so my mom says, well, people can change. And she's like, take Rochelle, for instance. Like, she used to like girls and now look at her. Yeah. It was, I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, but it was along the lines of like, I was, how do they, like, not relieved of it, but I was like freed of homosexuality. And I'm like, what's that? Because I didn't get that memo.
You're like, wait, what?
Because I think I just maybe had a boyfriend at the time, and that was like a sign to them that like, oh, she's done with that stage, but that's like, that's not the case.
But your mom outed you?
Well, I don't think I may have said something. I don't remember how the conversation was, but like, I don't feel like she outed me. Like, it wasn't a situation where I feel like she outed me to someone she shouldn't have.
Got it.
It was very like cohesive in the conversation. Like, the conversation was flowing, and that kind of fit in the conversation. But the part that I think bothered me the most was that she said that like I was freed from it, and I'm like, do you, like, I almost asked, like, do you just think that because I got a boyfriend now, or like, you know what I mean? Yeah. But it's like, that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Like, I had girlfriends. I just didn't bring the girlfriends around. Like, I brought the boyfriends around.
Yeah.
I brought the boyfriends around because that's what they accepted. Yeah. And I like had some pretty like rough relationships with guys. One guy was pretty like, not physically abusive, but very emotionally and verbally abusive. I think the guy I was dating when we lived like the.
Oh, I know exactly. Yeah. It's okay. He's on my list for eternity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, he's on my list.
I straight told I told him to his face.
Yeah. He was not great, but I think at the end of the day, my parents would probably prefer me be in a relationship with someone's like verbally and emotionally abusive versus being in a healthy relationship with a woman.
Yeah.
And that's pretty sad.
That is pretty sad. I just kind of wonder, but it's just, it's so much so that, my parents, even now, I was having lunch with my dad the other day. And one of my closest friends right now, he's gay, he has a husband, right? And we work together, and so my dad knows who he is. So, I said something about, let's just call him Jay. My friend Jay, blah, blah, blah. I said something off the like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, me, him, and his husband had breakfast the other day, and we were saying blah, blah, blah. He's like, wait, what? And I was like, what? Like, I was just not even thinking about it until much to the point that I didn't know what he was whatting about.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And he was like, you said Jay, right? And I was like, yes, Jay, Jay, you met him, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, but you just said his husband. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, but how is that? He literally said, how's that possible?
What?
Yeah. And I was like, that, it's 2022 and men can have husbands, right? He's like, oh.
He's like, oh, he's a husband.
Like, it literally took him like a whole ass second to catch up to reality. Like, that's how not an option it is.
Yeah.
Like, I just
that's
don't.
Crazy.
Yeah. He like literally couldn't even put it together.
Yeah.
And it's just.
Yeah. But I will say that like my mom specifically, because I just don't have conversations like this with my dad. My mom specifically has come a long way. Not too long ago, we had a conversation about my niece, and it was in a positive light of like, she literally said like, I'm just gonna love her. She's like, that's all I can do. She's like, I can't, I'll pray for her, but I can't, I can't judge her for how she's living her life. I'm just gonna love her. And I'm like, that's exactly what you need. I'm like, that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
That is all that is required of you, is for you to love her and let her live her life the way that she's comfortable living her life. She's not hurting anyone really as far as that goes. But like that's, and I think that's like, I am a little envious of that, because I wish that I had that sort of support
and acceptance
from her. Yeah. Because I think my husband probably is the first person that like, because even the girls that I dated, like, because if you're a bi girl, like that's a whole thing in the community of like, a lot of people say like, you can't be bi, like you can't have the best of both worlds. Like, a lot of people say that, and I don't agree with that.
I don't think
and my
that's fair.
husband's the first person that I've been in a relationship with that has respected my sexuality for exactly what it is. He doesn't try to change me. He doesn't try to he doesn't judge anything about how I've lived my life previously, we live our lives now. Like, he just lets me be exactly who I am. And I've just never had anyone do that until him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. And yeah, I just don't understand. I just don't understand it.
Yeah. It's sad, but I
It
feel
is.
I just and we were just talking about someone that I had a relationship with previously. We were talking about that a little bit ago. And one thing that I can definitely say is the connection that I have with that person, they're still in my life, still a really friend of mine, is still just as strong. And I don't think that connection will ever die. And I mean, you've seen us together. So you can't tell me that that's not real or that's not love. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I 100% agree, and I don't think it's fair. To me, it's so hip. I've heard people of an LGBT, B is there for a reason, Q, whatever, extra letters. You know what I'm saying? I've heard them say that too, bi is not a thing.
Yeah.
But I'm how is that fair at all? Aren't you doing the same thing to bi people as
the world
has done to you?
Exactly.
That seems so ridiculous to me. And I just think it does not matter who you love.
No.
It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you love. It doesn't matter how many people you love. As long as you and I have said this, as long as everyone that's involved is a consenting adult.
Exactly.
Of age adult. Yeah. A consenting adult. That's all that matters. And if
Yeah.
everybody's on the same page and everybody's saying, yeah, maybe it's 2 people, maybe it's 4 people. I don't care.
Yeah.
You do you, as long as you're not hurting, as long as you're not actively hurting someone.
Yeah, it's really sad because I still go to church sometimes. My parents, just like I said, they still go to church. My daughter doesn't have any siblings, but she has a lot of cousins that go to church too. And she loves playing with her cousins, and that's the one day a week where I know she's gonna see them. So I do let her go, and they honestly just either watch iPad or they kind of just do their own thing during church and just hang out with each other. And so I love that. But even in that space, the people in church are still not accepting, and they still make comments that are not respectable and that are hurtful. And I'm at the point now to where if they start making those comments, I'm just gonna we're just gonna leave. I'm not gonna stay in a space where I know that I'm not welcome.
But you don't want her to hear that either.
Exactly. And not that I think the church should, and when I say the church, I mean specifically the church that I grew up in,
right?
Because that's kind of all I can speak to. I don't think that they should be it's okay. If they really think it's wrong, that's fine. But you don't hear them getting up bashing people who lie. You know what I'm saying? They just bash homosexuality so much that it's just why are you so pressed?
Why do you think that is?
I think I've heard people in the Church of God in Christ, and I don't know if this is a church-wide thing or just Church of God in Christ type thing, say that and I've not seen this in the Bible where it says God hates the homosexual.
I think the only thing in the Bible it says God hates is divorce.
Yeah, and that they use that the Bible says God hates the homosexual. That's something that they say a lot. And they're the only thing, they'll say the only thing God hates the most is homosexuality. That's the highest level of sin. They say that a lot, and so I think that's just their push is it's the worst thing in the world. And I just heard my grandpa say it's nasty, they're disgusting. And it's how, I just don't understand how you can stand up in a pulpit at a church and bash anyone for anything. You know what I'm saying? It's supposed to be, a lot of people in the Pentecostal church say the church is a hospital for the sick. But would someone who's sick go into a hospital where they know they're going to be shot up at? No. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if they're trying so hard to so-called win these souls of these sinning homosexuals, probably not the way to do it, to talk mad shit about them and call them disgusting. You know what I mean? Maybe go about it a different way.
Maybe I was trying to see. I was trying to look it up really quickly.
Find the scripture.
I don't see it.
Yeah, they say a lot God hates the homosexual. Homosexuality is the highest level of sin.
So I'm just curious where that stems from, because I don't think there's a scripture about that. I know homosexuality gets brought up a few times in lists of things that are going to hell essentially, and I know homosexuality is always on there, and it's always like Sodom and Gomorrah. They say, you know, things like that, and there's a lot of like kind of quick references to like men lying with men and, you know, stuff like that, but that's also in the Old Testament too. I don't think there's anything even in the New Testament about it, and I know a lot of churches differentiate there, but either way, I guess circle on back to, I agree with what you're saying, that even if you think that it's wrong, why would you be bashing the people that are there for comfort and things? So it doesn't make any sense to me, and I don't know why either.
I don't know why they're so pressed. Like, they hate, and you know, now that I think about it, like the church that we went to together, I don't recall them ever having any, like, making any comments about like homosexuality or anything.
Oh, very much so. Now, maybe not in, I don't know that they ever did like actual like lessons like from the pulpit about it, but so okay, here's a good example. So when I worked at the church, I think I mentioned before, like people came in and did counseling sessions and things, right? So people would like bring their kids in and stuff that were like having same-sex attraction or whatever. They would bring them in for counseling. But I think probably one of the most tragic ones that I personally was involved with, like I sat in on the sessions, anyways. So there was a family in the church, their eldest son had transitioned to female, and so she was now transgender female. She had, you know, her own name that she picked out and everything. Let's just call her like Brienne, right? And so she wanted to go by Brienne. They would not call her by the name she chose. They would not use the pronouns that she had specifically asked. They would still refer to her as he, him, his, and they would still refer to her as like her original name. And she was going through like a lot of stuff in her life as well, but they didn't care about any of the other really serious things that she was going through that had nothing to do with her sexuality or being trans or anything. Like, that was not the focus of any of the sessions. The focus was all on basically trying to figure out why you want to be trans, and like having God reveal what has happened to make you be this. And literally they convinced her to a point that she wanted to become a woman because when she was going through puberty, her parents had a daughter, and the daughter got so much attention that she just wanted to be female. And I'm like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I was the only person, and this was back when I was still fundamentalist, I was the only person on staff that would use the pronouns she chose and call her Brienne. And everyone else would call her by her original male name, and they would say he, him,
that's
his.
so
and stuff.
hurtful.
And I'm like, that's just so disrespectful of like where the person is at. And it just like, churches always use the line of like, meet people where they're at, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But they don't fucking do that. And I'm just like, if you were meeting people where they're at, you would be using her she pronouns. Yeah. And you would be calling her Brienne, like she has requested and been very vocal that she would like to be called. And she was trans. She presented female. She had like a boob job and all this other stuff. Like, she definitely looked female. But they would say nasty things about her, like after she left, about like her appearance and things. And ultimately, last I had heard, because I looked her up the other day because I was like, I'm curious like how she's doing. And she transitioned back, last I saw, back to male, and was back in the church, back with her family. And I'm just like, you know, and maybe she's or now he, but I'm like, maybe he's happy that way.
Yeah, and that's good for him.
That's fine, but I wonder if that's the case.
Yeah,
because basically, like, she was not allowed when she was trans female. She was not allowed around her siblings. She was not allowed around her nieces and nephews. She's not allowed around her family in any capacity. She was only allowed to see her dad wouldn't even speak to her, but she was only allowed to see her mom, and her mom would like meet her for lunch and stuff. but she wasn't even allowed, like, not even allowed around your siblings. Like, are you kidding me?
That's sad.
Because of this, right? And they were scared because they ended up having another son later on. And they were scared that her being around was going to make him want to be trans. Or
that's not how it works.
I know this and you know this, and I'm just like, but it's just, so I'm saying that's how things were handled.
Yeah.
And so I definitely saw that side of it, and that always like really bothered me. You know, because I'm just like, okay, because I know pronouns are a hot topic now, and this was years ago before it was even, you know, as hot of a topic as it is now. And I'm just like, I personally don't think like you should go around calling everyone they, them, because you don't know what their pronouns are. But I do believe that if someone explicitly expresses how they would like to be referred to, you fucking respect that.
Yeah.
It's like if I go and tell someone like I want to be referred, like my name is Jenna, then you fucking call me Jenna. Like, you
what
don't
is
just
it hurting you?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah.
I just don't understand. Like, it doesn't do anything to you, like if I expressly say what I want to be called. And I'm just like, I just don't get it, honestly. I know we're going down another path, but
well, I actually have a pretty like interesting story about that.
Yeah,
there's someone in my family who's trans, not my immediate family, but like my extended family who's trans.
Okay. And
so they go by he, him, presents as a male, everything, married to a woman, and that woman's in my family. So I was at the park one day, and I was having a conversation with my mom about him. And she made the comment, like, I'm not going to call him because I know that this is her words. She was born a woman. I'm going to call her what she is. And me and my mom and my nieces sat at the park for probably like 2 hours. And we had a really, really good conversation behind the importance of using someone else's pronouns. And the crazy thing is we were sitting at a table, and the table like 10 feet from us was a very obvious lesbian couple. And they were like, when we walked up, they were talking and engaging, and when we started having that conversation, we were not quiet. They heard the conversation. Yeah, they sat for the entire thing. Like, they left when we left. Yeah, but I explained to my mom, like, because from her standpoint, it was like, well, as a Christian, I don't agree with that, and I feel like that's not of God. So I'm not gonna. I think she felt like she was sinning by referring to him as a him when, according to her, she was, he was born a woman. Violet, yeah. But explaining to her, like, that has what he is doing with his life has nothing to do with you. Right. If you think that it's wrong,
your faith.
Yeah. If you think that it's wrong, you can think it's wrong, but it is not gonna hurt you to refer to him as a him. It's gonna hurt him to refer to him as a woman, because you don't know what that transition was like for him. You don't know what he went through to get to the point that he's at right now. And like I said, it was about 2 hours, and at the end, she understood. And
how does she refer to him now?
I haven't seen her, but I think that if she saw him, she would refer to him as a him.
Well, that's good.
I think she would say him, specifically out of respect, because she doesn't want to be hurtful.
Look at Mama Roshel getting better.
And I think like unspoken, without me even saying anything, I think she understands maybe the hurt behind, like, maybe how it was, like, how I grew up. Maybe she sees the hurt, because I think she sees how much I push for other people and advocate for other people, that she knows that's coming from a place of, like, I was hurt, so I don't want them to feel that sort of pain. And so she's been a lot more, I wouldn't say accepting, I'd say more respectful. And I feel like that's all that people really want, is to be respected. Yeah. And I think it doesn't hurt anyone to refer to someone the pronouns that they prefer.
That they choose, right?
What is it killing you? Like, nothing. I work in when I'm in a professional environment, when I'm at work, I refer to everyone as they, them until they announce their pronouns. And we actually have had like a training a diversity and inclusion training at work, saying that is how we're supposed to, like, acknowledge people. You acknowledge someone as they, them until they announce their pronouns, and people do it every day without even realizing it.
Yeah, I think definitely people do it every day without thinking about it. I know someone used the example, someone used the example of if you were in a movie theater and there was a jacket left on the seat and you picked it up and took it to the front, how would you tell them? You would say someone left their jacket on the seat. Yeah. And because you don't know if it was a female or a male, you can't say his or her. So I kind of heard that example like early on when I was like doing a lot of like deconstruction work and stuff. And I was just like, that's a really, really good analogy that people do use that language. It's not out of left field, because I know a lot of people are kind of acting like, oh, this is all like new. And I'm like, they've been using this forever.
You just didn't realize it.
Yeah. I will say I'm guilty of, I don't feel like I refer to everyone as they, them. Now in a professional setting, the professional setting that I'm in currently, they are very big on diversity and inclusion, and almost everyone has their pronouns in their usernames. So it's not that hard for me to see what someone's pronouns are. I know we went to the Renaissance Fair with our girls, and I said something, they were checking out, and I was like, oh, go give the whatever to her, and someone that was standing at the checkout, and she was super sweet, and I say she, that was so rude. Okay, anyways, so they were super sweet because she said, like, pointed to their button, and it said they, them. And they were like, oh, I use they, them. And I was like, oh, I apologize. And they were like, oh, it's no problem at all. But that was it. And then I didn't say, I know I just did right now. I didn't mean to, but I'm like, I didn't use she, her anymore, and I apologized, too. But so I think, like, it's not that hard. No. And I think it's kind of cool. Like, if it's important to you in public to be identified by your preferred pronouns, I think that the button idea is kind of cool. Yeah, that's cool. And I had never seen that.
Yeah, I feel like I am female presenting, but I probably just from like work, I'm careful to announce my pronouns like pretty early on, and I don't say like I am she. You know what I mean?
Yeah, how do you do that?
Like,
I'm curious.
So basically, like if I meet someone for the first time at work, I'll say, hi, my name is Roshel, like I'm XYZ, I'm a mother to so-and-so, like I have a daughter, like she looks up to me. And in the conversation, I'll make sure to say like, yeah, and you can just like, call me girlfriend, or like, we can hang out. Like that's kind of how I definitely like, I'm very casual with it, because there's a lot of people that I work with that prefer to be referred to as they, them. But we have the same thing that you guys have, like you can
on
add
your
username.
Yeah.
And I do it too, because I don't want anyone else to feel uncomfortable, because there's been times when I've been in public, and I'll be with, like there's one time when I was with my husband, there was someone and he said blah 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 she, and I saw them flinch when he said she, and it was not out of
innocent.
It was very innocent, and I kind of was just like they and she, and they shook their head, and then he was like,
cool.
Yeah, he definitely, like, you could tell he was like apologizing, and we're moving along, and we're
right.
done.
I know. Kind of like, you don't need to make it a whole thing.
Yeah, he was just like, oh my bad, kind of thing. But
I feel like I've never met some, and I'm sure they are out there, but I've personally never met someone that maybe identifies differently than they present, and I've never met anyone that gets mad if you get it wrong.
No, I've seen more hurt.
Especially innocently.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like, oh, he, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, actually, she, or actually they. And you're like, oh, man, sorry about that. They, blah, 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 blah.
Just to make it natural.
Yeah,
I feel
just like and correct yourself and, restate it, say, oh, my bad, and, whatever their pronouns are. But I've never personally met someone that's like, oh, I can't believe you said.
Yeah, and I think that's and when you see people ranting about, I'm not calling them, it's like,
I'm like, you're being the drama.
Exactly.
Nobody else is.
Because like, if I was they, them, and someone called me she, I don't even imagine, I don't know what my mindset would be like to be in that place, but I just don't think that I would be so angry. I would just be like, oh, it's they, them, it's they,
Yeah.
And I think that that's okay. I don't see why it's such a problem for people to just acknowledge it, just say and move on. Because you're gonna call me by my name that I tell you my name is.
Right.
So why is it such a hard thing for you to call me like they, them, or if I even like was he? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think part of it is just like how people are. I wouldn't even say just raised. I would just say like social norms that you grew up with.
Yeah.
But social norm doesn't mean that it's right. and social norm had slavery at one point. Doesn't mean that it was right. So it's like, I know people sometimes use that example, being like, well, it's been this way for 100 years, and I'm like, yeah, so was syphilis and other things. Like, doesn't mean we can't get better, right? So it's just, and so I'm like, you can totally progress, and just, I think it's like progress over perfection.
Yeah.
That, like, obviously, like, as society progresses into being like more inclusive, more diverse, having equity, across all, genders, creeds, and races, we're going to be growing pains, but hopefully by the time our kids are older, it's like not even a thing.
Normal.
Yeah, it's just totally normal to maybe, like you were saying, refer to everybody as they, them, unless they state otherwise.
Exactly.
And hopefully that will be easier going forward. And I know a lot of schools are implementing things to that effect as well, where teachers are asked to use they, them pronouns, or some schools are asking for kids to give their pronouns. And I know a lot of people are getting mad about that, but they're like, why should our children be choosing this at such an early age? But it's like, I think you're kind of stopping the problem where it began and teaching them from the bat, like, hey, they, them, he, she.
It's all, who cares?
It's all good.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Whatever. And I think
that's the point, versus, like, I think a lot of people think it's more of they're pushing another identity on them. It's like, no, it's just letting them know, like, if you have another identity, that's okay. But, like, if you don't, that's also okay.
And if they do, we're going to respect it.
Exactly.
And
it's
I think
all about respect, I think.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, respect people's beliefs, and whether that be that they're vegan or whether, you know what I mean? Because people just get weird about everything.
Seriously.
Or being like, I know I've heard people, like, on the vegan thing, I've heard people be like, oh, I bet you if I put bacon grease, they wouldn't even know it. And I'm like,
same thing. Yeah.
That's awful. Like, why? They're not hurting anyone.
What are they? How are they affecting your life?
Yeah, they're not. And it's just, it's something different than how you live. And it's almost like it's a threat to your way of living, but it's not.
Not at all.
It's not. Yeah. Like, them painting their house blue has nothing to do with my house.
Nothing at all.
Like, paint my house pink. Cool. Paint it gray. It's my house. It's probably gonna be black. So
that's true. Like, I can see it.
The uniform. Look, I'm wearing gray today. Are you?
And black. Great.
Okay. You know what? It's gray. I wore a gray shirt 2 days in a row.
That's impressive.
It's very impressive.
Definitely an all black girl.
They are the only 2 gray shirts I own, but I wore it 2 days in a row.
Does not make it okay.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't know if the church will ever not even catch up with the times, but I think learn to be respectful of different people. I just don't think I don't see that being something that's prevalent in the Pentecostal church.
Yeah.
Like you said, there are other churches that are way more accepting, but I just don't think it's something that's ever going to be like okay in the Pentecostal church.
I don't think it will be okay in any of the mainstream churches. And then, especially, you probably tell from our accents, so we're American, because I know we have listeners like in the UK and stuff. But not only is it not okay, they are actively working to make it illegal in the United States. So they're back to, like, pounding the pavement. Now that abortion, Roe v. Wade got overturned, they've been very vocal. Like, we're coming for gay marriage next.
Yeah, I feel like I am all sorts of minority, like gay, black, and a woman.
You got it all.
Triple
threat. I don't know. Does it get any more minority than
threat?
Maybe
if I was an immigrant.
If you were an immigrant, I'm trying to think, how else could you be more minority? I don't know.
I know. I got a pretty good amount of them checked off the list.
Got a pretty good amount. Yeah.
So sad.
I do not.
But here we are, just living.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to touch on?
That's pretty much like the majority of my story. Yeah. I think there's a lot of like little things that kind of happen here or there, but I'm happily married to a man right now. I have a beautiful child. Don't think that any of my upbringing would have changed, like married a man, married a woman. I think at the end of the day, I knew that in order to be happy, like I had to decide for myself, like who I wanted to be with, but I know a lot of people don't have the luxury of saying that like the relationship that they ended up in is the one that they wanted to be in. I have a few friends who are kind of battling, like going back and forth, because they're like, this is what I was raised to believe was okay. Now I'm older and I'm exploring all these other things, and but now I'm married and I don't want to be in this relationship, but you know, and so I'm glad that like it didn't get to that point for me.
Yeah, that's, I can't even imagine. That's got to be really hard. I'm sure that's.
Yeah, and I share a lot with my like family, specifically my mom. We're really close. Talked about her a while ago. For a long time, I was nervous to be around Brittany in the presence of my family, because I mean, you've been around us, so you can see how strong, like, you know, the connection, the pull is between us, and I didn't want them to see that, but now I'm just like, I don't care, you know. They see it, they ask, I'll tell them, you know, I don't care. It is what it is.
Well, and you even said that your sister asked you about that, and you're like, you want to know or not?
Like,
and
nope.
then and your mom asked me. So all right, well, I think we could probably end there, and so I think we're kind of just figuring this out as we go.
If you guys have anything that you'd like to hear more about, or if you have any like, questions or anything, just let us know. We'd be glad to interact a little bit more.
And
with you guys.
If we got a lot of questions or whatever in comments, we could even do like an Ask Us Anything like episode or something.
We should definitely do like a Q&A Ask Us.
Maybe
we'll post something. Follow us on Instagram. Maybe we'll post a little like Q&A.
Maybe I should.
Maybe we'll post like a little Q&A thing.
On
Instagram and see.
That'd be cool.
If people have any questions for us.
And then like and subscribe, and just let us know what you want to see, what you'd like, even if it's something you don't like. I'll only cry a little bit.
I will not cry at all, and I also will not care.
You're in charge of comments.
Which is why we work so well.
I'm going to cry in the corner while she's like...
So that's it for today. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you guys on our next episode.
Bye.